Welcome to MTG Anonymous, your source for random deck techs and also strange combos. It's been a while since I've played. Here is the newest deck. Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. So today, it's been a while since I have posted a deck tech, and I know that I should be doing this more regular, and I will be trying to do so, but regardless, we are back doing free-to-play MTG Arena deck techs. I don't really have time for the gameplay videos yet. We'll get there when we get there. Anyways, for today's video, we're doing Green Landfall Aggro. As you can see, it's a mono-green list. First off, let's go over the separation. There are 18 creatures, 15 sorceries, 5 enchantments technically, and then 24 lands. So I say technically for the enchantments, as 3 of them are actually creatures. So we'll get to that point once we get there. Also, 3.4 average CMC, so not very high for a green deck, especially since we have a lot of ramp cards. And then also, the 3 slot is our heaviest because, again, well, average is 3.4, so that's where we have the most. Let's go over this. First off, we have Adventurous Impulse. For 1 green, you get a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So the reason we have this, basically we need 4 lands to start the game off. If we don't have 4 lands and we have any of the Adventurous Impulses, we can look at the top 3. Hopefully we get a land there. If not, you'll mulligan until you get 4, or you have Adventurous Impulse. Now, there isn't much card draw in the deck, so also, since it can find a creature, which are also important for this deck, we can also use that to do so. This is taking the uncommon spots, or the common spots, and pretty much you get them for free. Everyone has uncommon wild cards, so feel free to use them. Reclaim the Waste for 1 green. It also has Kicker. It's a sorcery with Kicker 3. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, search your library for 2 basic land cards instead of 1. So the reason we want to do this is, again, like I said with Adventurous Impulse, we want to be able to tutor up our forests so that way we get as many of them out, because we need 4 to start off, but we need ultimately 6. And then you'll see why we need the 6 in a minute. It's great that after 4, then you can use that. Or after 4 mana, you can use its ability, and then you can get 2 lands, so now you have 2 dedicated land drops. Destiny Spinner is one of our enchantment creatures, which is why I mentioned it. It says, for 1 and a green, it's a 2/3 enchantment creature human. Creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. That's important for this deck because there are a lot of creature cards we need to get going. Also, for 3 and a green, target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It is still a land. So we have 5 cards that count as enchantments, so 5 times. Basically, we'll be able to get a 5/5 elemental creature with trample and haste. So again, we're going to have a whole bunch of mana in this deck, at least that's the plan, and so what we'll do is we'll get as many of the forests out, get the enchantments, hopefully, and then swing. Now, that's not the main goal of the deck, but it is a backup strategy, and it's relatively important. Nylea's Intervention, this is a 2 of. These are rare slots, so again, most people have at least 1 rare. You need at least 1, and I'll go over why after we get through 2 more creatures. So Nylea's Intervention for X, a green and a green. It's a sorcery. Choose 1. Search your library for up to X land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Or it deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. So we have a creature that has reach, and we have lots of ramps, so we're not really worried about the damage to flyers unless you go against one of the dragon decks. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get as many lands out of our deck into our hand as possible, so that way we can draw the creatures, draw the sorceries, and then, well, pretty much play them, so that way we're able to win the game, because this deck needs the lands and it needs them fast. Also, this will help hold off your opponents if they do have a whole bunch of flyers, because there are a few flying decks wandering around there. So pay 4, and you can do 4 damage to each creature with flying. We have no creatures with flying, so this doesn't affect us. Next, Asusa Lost But Seeking. Like I said, Naila's intervention is important because Azusa is going to let us play 2 additional lands on each of our turns, so that means 3 lands a turn. 3 lands a turn is pretty good. Most people, when they see Azusa, they will kill it. It's a rare slot, so again, it's kind of important. You don't really necessarily need it, but I think it's important because we need as many land drops as possible. It's also a legendary, so you can only have 1 on the battlefield. So you could cut this down, replace it with Dryad of the Elysian Grove, but we'll go over that in a sec. Cultivate is next for 2 and a green. It's a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 onto the battlefield, tap, put the other in your hand, then shuffle your library. So the way you want to do this, play Cultivate first, get the 2 basics, put 1 on, play 1, now you've made 2 land drops that turn. So you could also replace one of the Azuzas with a Cultivate. I didn't think that was necessary because we kind of need to play more lands than that. Azusa, we can play 3 the turn. Cultivate, we can only play 2. So Cultivate is still good because we searched the basics out of our library, though. Dryad of the Elysian Grove for 2 and a green. It's a 2/4 enchantment creature, Nymph Dryad. Okay, and it's also a rare, so this makes 6 rares in the deck so far. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, which is why I said you could replace one of the Azuzas with Dryad of the Elysian Grove, because it's not legendary, so you can have 2 of them at the same time. But the important, well, not really important part, but the other part is lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. That's not necessarily important for this deck per se, but it's still nice to have. Fertilid for 2 and a green is a 0/0 elemental. It enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it. Pay 1 and a green, remove a +1/+1 counter, and then target player searches their library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, and then shuffle their library. So the reason this is in here, again, we need land drops. So if you have this on, say, turn 3, we'll have 5 mana. You can use use the 3 to play it, use 2 to pull, and then play a basic land. And then, again, next turn, pull, play a basic land. So it's another way to shuffle the deck in case you have some issues. But it's an uncommon, it's common, so it's great. Omen of the Hunt, another common for 2 and a green. It has Flash. Flash says you can play this anytime you have an instant. And then when it enters battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card. Again, same thing. We've been doing this entire time, getting lands out of our deck, put them onto the battlefield, and then once we do that, we'll shuffle our library. For 2 and a green, we get to sacrifice it, scry 2. You're not going to want to sacrifice it, basically because Destiny Spinner is going to want to see those make our lands into creatures. So that is our, again, like I said, backup strategy, but yeah, that's how we're going. Scale of the Heights is next for 2 and a green. It's a sorcery, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You gain 2 life, you play an additional land this turn, and you draw a card. So yeah, I know that's a whole bunch of stuff. We could also replace this with the Almighty Brushwag, but I kind of like this card. We get a +1/+1 counter on something. We'll go over that in a sec. Also, we gain 2 life, which it's relevant, but not really relevant. And then also, we draw a card, and we could play another land. So, yeah, that's basically what we want to do. Next, we have the most important card of the deck. Let's scroll down a little bit. Scute Swarm for 2 and a green. It's an insect 1/1 with landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm instead. So, you've basically seen all these ways we have to get lands onto the battlefield, mostly from drawing, or from searching them up, putting them on the battlefield, but also we have Azusa, we have Dryad of the Elysian Arbor. So Scute Swarm is going to be our main card. We're going to want to get at least 1 out after we have 5 lands, play our 6th land, we get the copy, and then as we go. So it's a really good card. Again, rare. If you can't get the other 2 or the other 3 rare cards, Scute Swarm is a must-have. You need 4 of these in the deck for it to work. Next off, Migration Path, uncommon. For 3 and a green, it's a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So what I love about Migration Path, if you have this card on 4 mana, and you also have Scute Swarm out, and you play Migration Path, when those 2 lands drop, they see each, Scute Swarm sees both of them at the same time, so that means you have 2 6 lands, basically. So now, instead of getting the 1 copy of 1/1 Insect and 1 copy of Scute Swarm, now you get 2 copies of Scute Swarm. So, yeah. So basically you have 3 then. And then you keep going and going and going as you go. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Also, it has cycling too. That's important because if we need to draw a card, card draw is lacking in this deck. We almost never run out of cards in our hand, basically because there's always at least 3 lands. At least that's how the game's played so far. Yeah. Also, if you need to, you can take one of the migration paths out, put Vastwood Surge, and we'll go over that now. For 3 and a green, it's a sorcery, kicker 4, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So, if we're having a hard time closing the game out, we're going to play Vastwood Surge for the kicker. I've almost never had it where I haven't been able to play the kicker, so that's relatively important. And then all those Scute Swarms, especially the copies that we make after we put the 2 basic lands on the battlefield, all of them get +2/+2. So then we swing with the ones we already had, the ones we just made are 3/3s, and then we just wait. So migration path, like I said, you can take one out, put a Vastwood Surge in. I made this deck out of cards I already had, so I didn't do that, but yeah. Also, you could take Nyla's Intervention, take one of those out, put Vastwood Surge in as well, but that increases the mana curve just a little bit, so you might want to hold off. Ancient Green Warden, one of our bigger cards for 4 green and green. It's a 5/7 creature elemental. It has reach. You may play lands from your graveyard. Kind of important. Not really. I've seen a couple land destruction decks in Historic. I play that sometimes with this deck too, but if you don't have it, you don't need it. I just like that it doubles triggers. You can replace these with the Vastwood Surges, like I said. It kind of moves your mana curve up just a little bit, but Vastwood Surge, relatively better than Ancient Green Warden in that case, because then instead of having a 5/7 and trigger twice, now we get 2/2s, +2/+2 on all of our creatures again. So, but the last part for Ancient Green Warden, if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So if there's 1 Scute Swarm and we're on the 5th land, somehow, 6th land, we'll say this, Ancient Green Warden is out, we play another land, Scute Swarm sees the 1, it triggers again. So now for every 1 Scute Swarm, we get 2 additional. So that is pretty good for the overall theme of the deck. It just wants to run out as many creatures as possible, as fast as possible, or run out Scute Swarm, then get all the lands we can get, make as many insect tokens as we can, maybe get Vastwood Surge, swing out. Last but not least is Beanstalk Giant. Now this kind of messes our mana curve up a little bit the way it is. For 7, it's a Beanstalk Giant, like I said, star. Beanstalk Giant's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. That's not really what's in here. It's actually in here for the Fertile Footsteps. For 2 and a green, it's a sorcery adventure. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. What's important about that is this land comes in untapped. So if somehow, say we play that, we on our 5th land, we play it, we drop 2, we play 1, so now we're back to 3 mana that's open, and then we can play another Beanstalk Giant, and then that brings us up to our 6. So then Scute Swarm is online, and that's relatively important. And that is it for the video. If you wouldn't mind, please like, comment, and subscribe. That would really help a lot as I'm trying to get this channel back going, and we can't get a custom URL until we're at 100 subscribers. Anyway, thank you.